Chapter 2. The next morning, I got up with Devon so we could talk while he got ready for work. I knew I didn't need to worry about cooking for him. He would get to my parents' house early. Mom would feed him while she fed Dad. It was the same arrangement that my parents had offered all their help since I was a teenager. Besides, I didn't feel good, my stomach was churning and the thought of cooking made me nauseous, but it wasn't bad enough to keep me from going to work. When I got to the office, Mr. Willoughby told me not to bother answering the phone if the caller's number was blocked, as was the case with most of the news stations and reporters. I managed to get a lot more work done by ignoring the phone most of the day. Whatever had made me ill passed a couple hours before lunchtime, leaving me feeling fine but starving for the rest of the day. I got home that evening and the small apartment was empty again. I changed clothes and stretched out across the bed, planning to take a short nap while I waited for Devon to get home. I vaguely remember him helping me under the covers and climbing in beside me, but nothing solid until his alarm went off the next morning. I dragged my eyes open. They felt they had been weighed down with sandbags as if I'd barely fallen asleep, but I knew better. I knew if his alarm was going off, then I'd slept at least 10 hours. MMMPH, I tried to say morning. You must have been tired last night. I don't remember you coming home. I was finally able to form real words. Exactly. I couldn't wake you. Every time I tried, you would mumble, roll over, and go back to sleep. I finally just let you sleep. I don't remember it. I blinked several more times, trying to make my eyes and brain behave as I lay in bed watching him dress. I don't doubt it. You were pretty much out of it. He pulled his t-shirt over his head and settled the hem around his waist. So what did you do last night? I ate, read a little, then moved you into bed and joined you. The mention of food made my stomach churn and I ran for the bathroom, thinking I was going to be sick, but nothing came up. Are you all right? Devon stood in the doorway watching me, concern filling his eyes. I nodded, not trusting my stomach with an open mouth. After lying on the bathroom floor, waiting to be sick for several minutes, I made my way back to bed. I climbed in and Devon sat on the edge, helping pull the covers over me. Maybe you should call in. Go see Alexis, she'll be able to help. He smoothed my hair away from my face and placed a soft kiss on my forehead. I didn't have it in me to argue. Besides, the nausea was getting worse, not better. I will, but since it's too early to do either, I think I'll go back to sleep for now. That sounds good. He glanced around. Where's your PCD? In the top of my purse, hanging on the front door. Devon nodded and disappeared into the other room. Here it is, he set the small device on the table beside the bed. I want you to call me if it gets worse. Your dad will understand if you're too sick to go to the clinic on your own. He gave me a look that reminded me of my father, and I knew if I didn't go see Alexis, they first would be in trouble. I nodded and snuggled further into the bed, wishing my stomach would settle enough for me to get back to sleep. Can you set the alarm to wake me at 8 a.m. so I can call in? No problem. He reset the alarm and kissed my head again before leaving. I drifted back to sleep. My stomach was still upset when the alarm went off, but not bad enough to send me running for the bathroom. I called Mr. Willoughby and let him know I wouldn't be in, apologizing for the inconvenience. He was understanding, assuring me he would rather I stay home and get better. After hanging up, I stared up at the ceiling, wondering why I felt so bad. After a few minutes, I realized I was procrastinating and forced myself out of bed so I could get ready to make a visit to the pack healer. I pulled my car into the small parking area at the rear of the house belonging to the Pax Lysandros and Harmonia, the couple that were second in command behind the Anikitos and Electo. I let myself through the gate leading into the backyard where the guest house that housed the Kitsune Clinic sat. After my last visit, where I'd had to show a member of the pack that he wasn't dominant to me, I was leery of someone else trying the same thing, so I glanced around the yard to make sure there wasn't anyone around. After determining it was empty, I continued into the clinic and found Alexis sitting on the sofa in the waiting area. She appeared to be reading. I found her was curled in the comfortable seat, as if she sat there often. Her blonde hair was cut into a pixie cut that seemed just right for her tiny body and upbeat personality. She glanced up and did a double take when she saw me. "Why aren't you at work?" "Too sick." I sat down beside her. "What's wrong?" "My stomach. It's better now, but when I got up with Dev this morning, it was bad. I thought I was going to throw up." I made an unhappy face. "But you didn't?" "No." "Is that all?" I shrugged, not sure what she was looking for. "I've been tired. I came in from work last night and laid down for a 10 or 15-minute nap and slept until morning. Dev said he tried to wake me when he came in, but I wouldn't wake up." "Have you been sick since you got home, or is it just today?" "I was nauseous a little yesterday too, but it was gone before noon." I looked at the clock on the far wall and found it was barely 9. "How's your appetite?" "When I'm not ready to vomit? I'm starving all the time." Alexis nodded, as if what I was telling her was something she had anticipated. I expected it to take longer than this, but obviously I was wrong. "What is it?" I was concerned it could be something serious. "You're not sick, Nicki. You're pregnant. I saw it after you were injured in Seattle." I didn't say anything because I knew telling you or Devon then would only have made things worse. She laid one hand on my back and rubbed in small comforting circles. My heart skipped a beat and the sick feeling in my stomach grew worse. I broke into a cold sweat and I ran for the bathroom. I was cleaning my face with a wet paper towel when Caden appeared in the doorway, Alexis right behind him. Caden was the enforcer who kept Alexis safe when she used her healing talent. I was glad I'd pulled my hair into a ponytail before I'd left this morning. It was the only thing that had kept it out of my face as I'd gotten sick. "You all right?" he asked. "She'll be fine," Alexis pushed past him. "She's just a little shocked." She shooed the large man down the hall and stepped into the bathroom with me. "I take it this wasn't planned?" I shook my head. "No." My whole body trembled as she led me back into the front room. Alexis took a deep breath. "Any idea how it happened?" She eased me down onto the sofa. "Aside from the obvious?" I quipped before shaking my head. "We always use condoms." "Well, except once, but I have an implant." I lifted my arm to show her where the small oval chip lay under the skin, releasing a steady stream of hormones into my body. "Oh honey," she sounded disappointed. "Didn't anyone tell you that hormonal birth control doesn't work for us?" I looked at her shocked. My mouth opened but words just wouldn't come. "Give it a few days, talk to Devon, you may warm up to the idea." She rubbed her hand up and down my back to comfort me. I didn't know what to say. "I'm gonna go get you something to drink, you stay right here." Alexis went down the hall into the old kitchen that had been converted into a break room, where I knew Caden spent most of his time. I heard her voice as she talked to him, but I couldn't make out what she was saying. In seconds, she came back out carrying a small bottle of soda. She twisted the top, breaking the seal before handing it to me. "Here, this will be easier on your stomach than water." I took a small sip and scowled at the unfamiliar flavor. I looked at the label and found it was ginger ale. The ginger will help calm your nausea, and the bubbles keep it from being too heavy on your stomach. You should be able to hold it down without any trouble, as long as you don't drink too much. I took another sip. We sat in mutual silence for a while. I tried to process the news. She sat with me, being there for me. The door behind me opened, but I didn't bother to turn to see who it was. I was too absorbed in my own troubles to care who had come in or why. Suddenly, Devon bent down in front of me. His clear gray eyes were soft with concern. Nicki baby, are you okay? I looked at him, my eyes meeting his as the tears started to spill down my face. I took a deep breath. I'm pregnant. Something flashed through his eyes but was gone before I could identify it. All right, but are you sick? Are you hurt? I shook my head, the tears still flowing unchecked down my face. No one told me that the implant doesn't work for us. He took a seat on the couch beside me and pulled me into his arms, holding me securely against him. It's all right, baby. We'll deal with it, he murmured into my hair. I felt him set his chin on top of my head. Is she really all right? He asked Alexis. She's in shock. I'm sorry, it never occurred to me that no one let her know that the implant wouldn't work. That's not your fault, but will the implant hurt the baby? He asked something that hadn't occurred to me. It shouldn't, but it's probably best if it comes out. All right. Can you give us a few minutes? I barely registered the soft sound of footfalls as she left the room. Devon's arms tightened around me. It's okay, Nick. You're not sick, you're not hurt. We'll figure it out. His hand ran lightly over my arm, both taking and giving comfort with the contact. Until that moment, until he said it would be okay, I hadn't realized how afraid I'd been of his reaction. I looked up at him. Are you sure? You're not mad? I'm not mad. He gave me a gentle smile. We're both alive and we're together, everything else we can deal with. I took a deep breath and rubbed my face against his neck, smearing the tears on my face into his skin. You're sure? I'm sure. I let out the breath I'd been holding in a rush, letting some of the tension in my body go with it. He continued, Alexis says that implant needs to come out. Do you think you're up to it? I thought for a second, considering what it would likely take to get it out. A small cut, and maybe her digging for a minute or two to get the chip out, then it would be over, the cut would heal in minutes, an hour at the most. I shrugged. Might as well. He helped me off his lap, stood, and together we went in search of Alexis. 10 minutes later, we walked out of the clinic, a small band-aid on my arm where the implant had been. Is there anything in your car you need? Devon asked. I looked at him, confused. You're still shaky, you're not driving. We can take your car or the truck home, it's up to you. I've got my purse, the car will be fine here for a while. Good. He walked me around to the driver's side of his pickup, unlocked the door, and held it open so I could climb in. Once in the vehicle and on the road, he didn't head for the apartment, instead he was going farther into town. Where are we going? I frowned. The diner. I'm hungry, and even if you ate this morning, you need to again. What makes you say that? Caden told me you'd been sick when he called to tell me I needed to come get you. He glanced at me before looking back at the road. So, we'll go eat before we go home. I didn't feel like fighting, and the last of the nausea seemed to be fading. He was right, I was starving and it didn't make sense to argue. When got back to the apartment, I made my way inside, sat on the couch and waited for Devon to join me. I'd already asked if he needed to go back to my parents. He'd said my dad let him have the whole day. Something about taking care of me being more important. Honestly, once I'd heard that he didn't have to go back, I hadn't cared why. Devon changed out of his work clothes and came back into the living room. What's up? He sat beside me. You look like you've got a lot on your mind. I looked at him as if he'd lost his mind for a moment. Of course I do. How are we gonna do this? Do what? Get married, mated, have a baby, find a house, all of it. The weight of it all was overwhelming me, and I could barely think. Just like everyone else. One day, one step at a time. But I'm not ready. I felt tears start from my eyes again, and it made me angry. I hated to cry, and I hated not being able to control it. I swiped the offending moisture off my face with a sharp, angry brush of my hand. I wasn't looking for a boyfriend, and now I have a mate. I wasn't ready to get married, and now we're engaged. I thought I was handling it all right, dealing with things as they came. I don't know if I can deal with this. The sound of my own shrieking made me realize I was starting to lose control. I was nearly hysterical. Devon scooted closer and wrapped one arm around my shoulders. I know it's not what we were looking for and it's not what we expected, but we can handle it together. Are you sure? Of course I am. He pulled me against him, kissing the top of my head. I relaxed against him and let the worries drift away. I would have plenty of time to worry about them tomorrow. I was going to enjoy him being here with me now. The warmth and security of his arms around me was more important than the fears that had crowded my mind. I closed my eyes, laid my head against his shoulder, and let him hold me.